Hello again and thanks for joining. It wasn't that long ago that I did a video where I had a whole bunch of old Piko wagons and I kind of concluded I thought they were pretty good value for money. I pulled these two out of that collection and didn't show you at the time because these are something a bit different. And if we look at the ends of the boxes, you can see that they're both made in the GDR and you can see that the part numbers are very similar. This one 15, this one 18. So it's going to be the same model just with different decoration. But what caught my eye was that down here it says that the price was in zloty, which means that these were actually sold in Poland. And it looks here from this mark on the box here that it's possibly in a shop in Warsaw. I'm going to assume that was before 1989, so that would have still been when Poland was part of the USSR, I guess. So it's quite interesting that these were sold when the Iron Curtain was still in effect, and now they've ended up in my hands. So I think we should open these up and check them out. Well, no prizes for guessing it would be exactly the same model, just with different colours and printing on them. But these are great Deutsche Reichsbahn bogie tank wagons. Let's check them out close up. I'll start off with the blue one. So I think the plastic on these is starting to get a little bit brittle, so I'm going to be a bit careful with them. This brakeman's hut here is actually a piece which has been on many different wagons, not just this one, because I've seen this one before with this bit of railings. The tank is quite a simple thing and it has been painted in blue, it looks like, and the paint has got a little bit of the kind of orange peel effect where it's got a bit of texture to it. Not sure whether that's by design or whether it's just ended up like that. And on the top we can see the moulding mark the whole length of the tanker. But the hatches up here look pretty good, and we've got a walkway as an extra piece which has been added on with the steps coming down in black plastic. There's no details on the top of that walkway, though it would have benefited from a bit of checker plate, I think. And then looking further down, these little warning panels are extra pieces as well. This one you can see the DR there and some other printing, which is very clear. This one doesn't have any printing at all. I guess this would have the chemical details, maybe some warning panels. And we do have these little white flashes on the corner, but they're not done that well. They have been painted on, but you know, not great. But we do have some not bad printing on the side of this one. The chemical works of Buna, which looks quite interesting, so it's obviously a chemical tanker. And we also have some printing down on the chassis, which has a bit of a glossy sheen to it, so it looks as though it's maybe been painted. And you can see it more clearly at the ends here, where the buffers have just been pushed into the chassis, and they're the flexible buffers as well, which I actually really like because it means they can be bashed around and not going to break. You can see that here. Now this piece, the chassis, is actually a piece of metal which has been painted black. But underneath we have an additional plastic piece put in with all the brake gear and discharge pipes, which looks really good. And these bogies are quite interesting because they've got a degree of suspension on them. They pivot up and down like this, and then it moves side to side with the part that's holding the coupling. No NEM sockets on these. We've got the typical old Piko coupling with a little spring, which is made of metal, but it gives a bit of articulation separate to the bogie. And those bogies don't really have a lot of detail. It looks a bit flat and lifeless here. It could have had a bit more deep relief on them, but they look not too bad. We do have plastic wheels with metal axles, and at least we have little brake blocks in line with the treads. They're not massive flanges on these as well, so I think you'd get away with running this on modern track if you needed to. Anyway, that's one of these tankers, the blue one. Let's have a look at the green one. So unsurprisingly, it's exactly the same moulding with exactly the same parts, but this one differs because obviously it's in this kind of army shade of khaki green, and we've got the Liuna, I think that's how you pronounce it. I guess that's another chemical works, and some more printing up here, which is the same positioning as on the blue tanker, but obviously the logo's different. What is quite interesting though is both these two panels are exactly the same with the same printing on them, even though it's a completely different tanker. I think they could have changed at least the running number, but they've chosen not to do that. So I guess that's maybe cost cutting. And that's also the same for the writing on the chassis. It's exactly the same printing. And also here we have the painting of these little flashes, and again it's not done very well either. So it's exactly the same model, just a different colour, but it does make for an interesting train to have a different selection of these. And I'm guessing the other numbers, we saw that this is number 15 and 18, that the other numbers in the series are just different colours and different logos of the main tank. The rest of it would be exactly the same. Anyway, let's put one of these on the scales and we'll check out how much it weighs. So these wagons weigh 83 grams. So I do like tank wagons, and I think these Piko ones are pretty interesting and quite neat looking models. I wish I knew the history of these two wagons because obviously they've had a bit of a checkered past, having been sold I guess in Warsaw, but certainly somewhere in Poland, and most likely at a time before the fall of the Berlin Wall. They've been around a while and they must have some kind of story behind them because they've ended up here in Scotland, and I'm looking at them now. So I feel quite privileged to actually get my hands on these, and I think they look pretty cool as well. They're really something very different, and I think they're certainly to an acceptable level of modelling that if you had them on your model railway, they would look fine, I think, going along in a nice looking and interesting train. And when it comes to price, these Piko wagons are actually quite cheap because they're not really wanted that much, especially if you're after the latest things. Then these are going to disappoint you because they're a bit crude and a bit rough and ready around the edges. But that's reflected in the price because you can pick up these for as low as £5 a piece. So if you think of modern wagons being somewhere in the region of 30 to 40, maybe even up to £50 for a bogie tank wagon, you can get possibly 10 of these for the same price. So it's quite good value for money, and it gives you some extra rolling stock as well. I think these are great things to have, and my favourite here is the green one, which I'll put onto the turntable in a little bit. But what's your favourite, and what's your thoughts on these wagons? Do you think they're good value for money? And have you any theories about the history of these two? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel. So I'll put the green one on the turntable, and that wraps up another video from me. Thanks for joining me on my continuing exploration of vintage model railways, and I hope to see you on my next video.
So model trains, model worlds, choo choo, model trains, tiny worlds, choo choo. So model trains, model worlds, choo choo, model trains, tiny worlds, choo choo.